Hello. Today is March 4th, 2025. Welcome to Karmada community meeting. The meeting is recorded and the video will be uploaded to YouTube. Okay, let me share. Okay, from this meeting, I think we can leave your name here.
Yeah, let me go ahead.
Okay. Since this is just one agenda, Mihashi, would you like to share your screen?
Yeah, I can go ahead. I had one colleague who's supposed to join, but it's okay. I think we can get started and I'll just ping him, see if he joins. But yeah, so today what I wanted to talk about was just the continuation of the federated resource quota enhancement. So I decided to publish a formal proposal on GitHub. And this kind of goes over what we had discussed last week. Essentially, the proposal aims to enhance the existing federated resource quota so that we can start to enforce namespace resource limits directly on the control plane level. At the moment, what the federated resource quota really provides Karmada administrators is just with the ability to manage existing resource quotas via static assignment. And so this saves us some time by not requiring a propagation policy for resource quotas, but it's not entirely compatible with our failover features, specifically because static assignment of resource quotas requires that users subdivide their quota between clusters. And so each member's cluster's resource quota will be less than the total quota allocated to the user. So during failover, what will happen is if one member cluster does not have sufficient resources, then the applications that have failed over will never be scheduled. And this is problematic. So what the goal here is to maintain the existing features that the federated resource quota supports, while also adding in a default mechanism that would allow the federated resource quota to enforce and impose resource limits on the Karmada control plane level, and to make this configurable and also toggleable. So if users don't want to use it, they don't have to. So for the actual proposal, what I'm suggesting is that if the static assignment is not defined on the federated resource quota, we should instead enforce overall resource limits. So the federated resource quota will be updated whenever resources are applied against the relevant namespace. And we can either update the quota by default, or we could consider adding in a scope for the quota if that's something that we're interested in. We can also include a custom controller, which would be responsible for updating the overall resource usage. And then we would also be using a validation webhook or an admission controller that will block users from applying or updating resources that go above the total resource allowance. So in terms of the actual API changes, it's pretty minimal. All I'm suggesting is we update the resource binding spec to include a pointer to the federated resource quota reference. And this can be updated in two major ways. So if there is a federated resource quota in the namespace, we add it to the created binding by default. If there isn't one, we leave it empty. And if we do decide to add a scope to the resource quota, we can determine if the resource matches the scope. And if it does, we can add a pointer to the binding. So from the design point of view, we will have a controller that's responsible for updating the default resource usage of the quota. So the controller will only reconcile if the resource in question has a pointer to that federated resource quota. And when reconciling, the controller will list the resource bindings by namespace and add up the resource requirements. We could decide to make this a bit more sophisticated by simply just looking at the delta in the resource usage. Um, but I think that this is a pretty good first step. Secondly, for the scheduler, since the controller is listening to resource bindings, the federated resource quota will be calculated after the resource binding has been created or updated. So if a user, for example, bulk applies a bunch of resources, it could be possible that the user could go above the quota limits. So in this case, we should check on the scheduler level, okay, is the quota being honored before I actually decide to schedule this resource? And finally, from the admission webhook, assuming that we don't do the admission controller, we would first edit the existing validating webhook that we have for the federated resource quota that would prevent users from toggling on the static assignments on and off while the quota is already in use. Essentially, I want to limit the way in which the tenant can use the resource quota while it's currently being controlled by a different controller, since the overall limits and the static assignments will have different controllers. So I don't really want both of them reconciling the resource all at once. And then secondly, we will create a validating webhook to enforce the actual resource quota limits. And this implementation reuses the existing default and third-party resource interpreters in order to calculate the predicted delta resource usage and apply that resource usage to the overall. And if it goes above the limit, then the webhook would deny the request. So I went ahead and did some performance testing. So I enabled our webhook on one of our internal Karmada clusters, and then I also disabled the webhook on one of our internal Karmada clusters. And I ran a bunch of different like put requests to create Flink deployment resources. It seems as if the request latency does slightly increase, but I don't know if it's something that's substantial. I could run more comprehensive performance testing on this, but yeah, I thought it was just worth talking about. Um, and that's it. So let me know if you have any questions or concerns.
Mhm.
I think as far as the data you got, I think it's kind of okay. Okay, what do you think?
Yeah, generally looks good. I'm thinking do you mean the result quota will be taking into account during the schedule process?
So we'll have a separate controller that's listening to whenever a resource binding is being created or updated.
Mm.
And
Mm.
based off of that resource binding creation or update, the controller that's managing the overall resource usage for the quota will take a look at all the resource bindings that have been generated in that namespace and add up the resource footprint for that namespace. So typically this should be done before or around the time that scheduling happens. But the reason why I wanted to alter the scheduler as well is just in the case that let's say a user decides to bulk apply a whole bunch of different resources, those resources, like it becomes a race condition because you're waiting for the controller to sense that those resource bindings have been created. It's going to have to calculate the change in the quota usage. And the scheduler might decide to schedule those applications before that quota actually gets generated. I would have to double check this and to confirm. But I believe if you decided to bulk apply a bunch of resources, you could technically get around the quota enforcement. So that's why I wanted to have like a check on the scheduler that would just confirm, okay, are we beyond our resource footprint? And if we are, then don't schedule the resource. But perhaps I actually just need to do some more testing on this to confirm whether that's the actual behavior. If that's not the behavior, then what we could stick with is just keeping the actual controller that updates the quota overall like resource footprint, and then have the webhook control the enforcement.
Okay, I'm thinking the controller reconcile logic. I'm not sure if this will bring the performance concerns because every time every reconcile loop the controller will list all the resource bindings in the namespace.
Yeah, what I'm thinking we could do is instead of doing like a list of all resource bindings in the namespace, we could just have the controller take the resource binding that it's reconciling for, check the overall resource footprint on the status, and then just calculate the delta in usage. But like you would have to, that's a bit difficult because currently we're able to be precise with how much overall resources are being used by just summing together all of the resource binding, like resource requirements together at any point in time. If we wanted to just calculate the delta, then we would need to maintain some sort of cache to check, okay, what was the previous resource footprint of this resource binding? And then if that resource hasn't changed, then we wouldn't need to reconcile. If it does change, then we would need to alter the status.
Okay, I remember we already have the federated resource quota controller,
Yeah.
which will watches the resource binding changes, and it will maintain the overall usage of each resource binding. So
Yes. So that controller simply monitors the resource quotas that are applied to each cluster and then fetches their status to sum up all of the total
yeah,
resource usage across clusters.
yeah.
Yeah, so for this, what I'm expecting is that only one of those controllers should be used at once. That's sort of why I wanted to add a separate check to the existing federated resource quota validating webhook to make sure that users never toggle between using the default and using the static assignment. That said, perhaps if we want to have users still be able to control how they actually deploy resource quotas to the different member clusters, we could think about having a separate resource that handles that functionality. I don't really know a name off the top of my head, but we could have two separate resources. One that is responsible for simply scheduling resource quotas across clusters, and one that's responsible for maintaining a default resource limit on the Karmada control plane level.
Mm.
Yeah, well, that's also what I'm thinking about. Maybe we can just name this with a new API, so maybe it's easier for users to understand and distinguish the two different behaviors.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so assuming that we decide to define a completely separate resource for this with its own API, the only other concern then is the performance of the controller itself, right? So we don't really want to list resource bindings per namespace every single time it reconciles, right?
Right, right.
Do we have any existing controllers that maintain any form of cache between reconciles, or is that not really something that's done typically?
The controller framework we are using currently already caches all objects, I think. So
You mean all the bindings, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we might don't need to maintain another cache.
Okay. Yeah, if there's a cache that already exists, at least we could retrieve resource bindings from there a bit more quickly.
Yeah. Actually, when you use the client passed to each controller, um, the framework will firstly get the results you wanted from the cache. If the cache not hit it, then um, back to send a request to API server.
Yeah. Okay.
Another comment from me is about the motivation part. Uh,
Mhm.
you mentioned that the feature doesn't work with application and class failover. Mm, I think uh, do we need to add more details about why that doesn't work? Because from
Yeah, I can add a bit more detail. I was thinking about including these diagrams in the proposal. Maybe I could do
yeah,
that as well.
yeah, that's good. Because I think for people who don't have the background with the uh, application failover feature, they might cannot understand why we need this.
Okay. All right. I can expand the motivation a bit. Maybe have like a guided example of what the limitation is.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay, I will revisit the current design of federated resource quota, as well as the controller we have, and maybe I will leave my comments on the PR after that.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, we have some new guide in the meeting. That anyone want to talk? Some maybe introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Lee, and I first time being here. Just want to say hi to you guys. My background is I work with Mihash in the same team, and probably in the future I will join regularly. Yeah, right now
Okay,
I'm working on
great.
this project, the same project what Mihash is working on.
Lee will be at
good.
KubeCon
Welcome.
with us too, so maybe you can meet him in person as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, sound good. Okay, now one more thing I want to talk about the KubeCon. We have a maintainer meeting, right? Kevin?
We have a special slot with a, I think it's a dedicated meeting room, like for, I don't remember, 1.5 or 2 hours at the Maintainer Summit. So the Maintainer Summit is a new to the KubeCon Europe, which will be on March 31st. Yeah. So no conflict with the collocated events. I can try to find the link. Yeah, so
Mihash, when will you arrive at London?
I should be there March 30th.
March what?
30th.
30th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to join the meeting? We can talk about the features, the future features, maybe.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. So maybe before the conference, I will send a email to the mail group, and we can have another maybe Google Doc to list all the topic we are going to talk about.
Cool. I'll be on the lookout.
Okay. Looking forward to see you there.
Yeah, likewise.
I see another guy, Leon. Is that you, Leon?
Yeah.
When will you arrive at London?
I think both Wei Chen and me will arrive Sunday, 30th. So we can
Sunday.
both make it to there.
Okay, sound good. Yaling and you?
Yeah, I'll be there with a few of my team members. I'll arrive there same as Mihash, March 30th. So yeah, I should be able to attend.
Okay, sound good.
By the way, this link is from Sked, but for registration, is it via the KubeCon registration?
yeah, let me find the registration link. Actually, you can
Oh, actually, I
click
found it.
on the Yeah, the top. There's a register to attend, and you would need to point out that you are a member of Karmada project. So the people would confirm your registration. It's kind of validated by manual, I think.
Okay.
Some CNCF stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
So, okay, guys, I think stop the meeting. See you next time.
Yeah. Just to add, maybe we can also have a drafted document for the project meeting at the maintenance summit. So if you have any topics would like to be covered, you can we can just add it to that. We can send it later on when we have the drafted document. Maybe just create an empty one first. Yeah.
Okay, I can do that, and after that, I will send the doc to the mail group.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. I'm so excited to see you guys. So, bye.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Yeah. See you in London.